Welcome to this confidence webinar, one of 4 in HemeNet's series considering aspects of building on our personal resilience. Being confident in our competence to get through adverse experiences is a vital factor in our ability to motivate ourselves to keep going and to involve all our problem-solving skills. On first consideration, confidence appears to be a characteristic that is set early in life by what we were told about ourselves by influential people in our lives and by the subsequent pathways and experiences that we then feel confident to follow. This influences our life narrative, what we believe about ourselves in relation to external forces such as fate. No parent wants to disenable their child, but sometimes supportive messages can backfire and become embedded, and then we may dismiss anything that doesn't fit with the message. Jan and Georgie had a father who they both deeply respected. He would say to them, "Jan, you're the attractive one, and Georgie, you're the clever one." Jan spent her adolescence thinking that she was not clever and not even trying at school, and Georgie spent her life thinking she was ugly, both dismissing all evidence to the contrary. We decide what messages we're going to pick up as we grow up, depending on our relationship with the person who says them and how they're said. And some of them really can undermine our confidence in ourselves. If this resonates with you, write down the belief you have and who said it to you. If they are still around, maybe have a chat with them about it. If they're not around, then you may want to consider if these messages were not actually about you, but about their past experiences, which they may have subconsciously passed on to you. Low self-esteem can become embedded, especially if we let our inner critical voice take over. Learning to be kinder to ourselves and being a little more assertive can be seriously liberating. For instance, saying no to a particularly demanding work colleague who has expectations that you will always be able to drop everything else for them when they ask. How might you go about developing assertiveness without being dismissed as rude or difficult? You might want to try this 4-step process. Firstly, get their buy-in before you even start. And this is about acknowledging the position that that person is in. For example, it might be, I know that you want the best for this team and are concerned for us all. And so secondly, tell them how you feel. I feel like I'm always having to put your work before everything else, however important everything else is. Then tell them why you feel that way. You seem to dismiss most of the ideas that I have come forward with to make things work more smoothly. And then finally, tell them what you would like to happen next. I would prefer you to encourage me in the work I'm doing rather than dismissing my efforts. Our personal human capital is the sum of all our assets. It is how we present ourselves to others, all the skills, knowledge, and resources that make you proud. This exercise allows you to consider things that you may normally underplay. Many people are brought up to dismiss their strengths with comments like, "Don't blow your own trumpet." Modesty is praised as an attractive quality. Wait until someone else notices how great you are. But this does not always help us to build our self-esteem, and we discount our natural abilities, thinking that this is a good thing. However, investing time in becoming confident in the skills we already have can have real benefits in building self-confidence. If you find this exercise difficult, it may be this is something that happened to you. Pause the webinar for 5 minutes and write everything down that is a positive resource and skill in your life. Read back loudly and positively what you've written, and read back a friend's list to them and ask them to do the same for you. So would you say you were an optimist or a pessimist? It may be that you are sometimes one and sometimes the other. Many pessimists state that they are just realists. However, it can also mean that your thoughts are so directed towards mitigating against negative scenarios that may occur in order to avoid a catastrophe that you miss the opportunities that could be in front of you. Optimism calms worry and creates hope and subsequently confidence. It's difficult to be confident without it, and it's a choice that you can make. The studies show that although pessimists often read the world accurately, optimists persevere for longer and are happier as a result. So moving to sensible optimism appears to be the key. taking optimism far, however, and you may spend your life feeling disappointed. In A Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela was quoted as saying that during his time in prison, he never let himself believe that a life prison term really meant life. I'm fundamentally an optimist. Whether that comes from nature or nurture, I cannot say, but part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed towards the sun, one's feet moving forward. There were many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not and could not give myself up to despair. That way lay defeat and death. Whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, you'll be proved right, the old saying goes. Can you think of a time fairly recently when you felt very pessimistic about a situation? Is there a possibility that your pessimism made you less resilient? Spend a couple of minutes thinking about this or discuss it with a friend, and consider what effect it might have had on both the experience and the outcome if you had been more optimistic. In each section, we also look at factors that impact us physically as well as psychologically. We know from studies that approximately 60% of us are not getting enough sleep, and this impacts our mood, our cognitive function, our immune system, and weight management. So it makes sense to make investing in good sleep a key part of building resilience. Whilst we sleep, our bodies go through a range of 90-minute cycles. Between the deeper stages, 1, 2, 3, and 4, when we are really asleep, physically restoring ourselves, and rapid eye movement, REM sleep, when the brain does all of its restoration work. Through our sleep cycle, the majority of REM sleep happens after 4 hours. This is when our experiences from the day are put into storage for later use. Our hormones and immune system rebalance, amongst other things. So if this process is cut short, it's really hard to absorb new information because we haven't processed the things that happened the day before. So we become tired, low functioning, and defensive. This is why sleep deprivation can lower our confidence. It lowers our stress threshold and leaves us feeling both irrationally irritated and brain frazzled. Here is a quick quiz that you can complete. Just press pause and then restart the webinar when you've decided. Question 1 is true. You cannot fight the feeling of needing to go to sleep whilst you're driving by turning up the radio or the air conditioning or even opening the window. If you're struggling to stay awake, you're unsafe to drive. Stopping the car, taking a short nap of up to 45 minutes is recommended before you continue on your journey. Question 2 is false. Studies show that we're habitual creatures, and so if you often lie awake unable to sleep, you risk embedding sleeplessness into your bedroom environment. It is better if after 20 minutes of lying awake you get up, do something really boring, like a puzzle or read a book, and try again as you feel a wave of sleep coming towards you, which should be within the next 90 minutes. Question 3 is false. Because of sleep apnea, where the throat muscles relax during sleep, and they can temporarily block the windpipe. So the night is spent with the brain temporarily going into emergency measures to restart breathing. If you know someone who snores and appears to sleep for a full night, but complains of being tired all the time, it is worth suggesting they get checked out by their GP. Also, if you or your partner snore, there are throat exercises and equipment from the British Snoring website that you might want to consider. Finally, question 4 is true. Health issues exacerbated by weight gain are because our appetite regulation is impacted by sleep deprivation. Studies show that ghrelin, a hormone promoting hunger, increases with sleep restriction, whereas leptin, a hormone contributing to the perception of fullness, decreases. Those who struggle to sleep will often give up and then get stuck in a pattern of poor sleep and say, "I told you I'm rubbish at sleeping." So our top tips here are firstly, not to give up. Keep trying something different before you go to bed and make a note of how well you sleep. For instance, when you last consumed something containing caffeine, when you are exercising or drinking alcohol, or when you switch off electronic devices. We're all good at preparing children to sleep with a calming atmosphere of a bath and reading a story and switching off phones and laptops, but we very rarely do this for ourselves. The blue light on our phones plays a role in stopping the production of melatonin, which is our natural sleep hormone. Putting on the night shift on all electronic equipment can be a real life changer. We've picked out some tips and further resources for 2 specific conditions that impact sleep. Firstly, developing insomnia, when you're really struggling to go to sleep, but also to stay asleep. It's possible to develop a fear of sleep because of nightmares or vulnerability, and if this is the case, seek help from a counsellor. We have also included advice on supporting yourself through shift work, which can interrupt your circadian rhythms, which you might find helpful if you're currently switching between night and day shift work. We do hope that you find some of these ideas helpful. There have been short exercises in this section on beliefs, assertiveness, recognizing your resources, and optimism. You might like to spend some time looking at these again before moving on to another section.